Ladies and gentlemen, button pushers and wrench turners, welcome to another episode of Something's Broken. My name's Tayler Goodyear and I own TG CNC Service out of Wisconsin. On this episode, I kind of wanted to dive into the starting of my company and what I went through to start it. It's kind of a fucked up story, a little bit, depending on whose eyes are looking through at it, but I'm going to dive into it. So, if you listen to my previous episode, I worked for an OEM manufacturer as a service technician, and I was traveling all over the country for them and whatnot. And then I had a job in Minnesota, and I had a machine up there that wasn't related to the OEM that I was working for, but I was able to help the customer with that machine figure out what was going on because they had been waiting on service for so long for that machine, and nobody knew when service was going to get in there for that OEM. And lo and behold, I used to actually work for that OEM, so I, you know, kind of was able to figure it out relatively not easy. I mean, nothing's really easy in service, but I kind of already had experience with those machines and what I thought was the issue, and it ended up being the issue that I thought it was going to be. And later down the road, they ended up calling me back in and fixing it. So, um, when I was driving home from that job, I started looking into LLCs and what it takes. I had a couple of buddies that had started their own service companies, so I was asking them questions about how they got started and what was the process of getting it going. And I made a lot of mistakes. Not a lot of mistakes, but I made some mistakes that I could have prevented. One was funding, because I didn't want to drain my own money to start up, and that didn't work out the way that I was hoping it. But now that I look back on it, I'm glad that I was forced to take the route that I had to take, because my company didn't go into debt starting up. I didn't go into debt starting up, but I did drain most of my personal funds at the startup before I had invoices rolling in. So, um, the LLC I went through a like a third party app, kind of. I won't say who they are, but they made it kind of easy. And during that process, I didn't know that your EIN number, they do all of that for you. They get your EIN number, they get you registered with the state that you're trying to get an LLC in and whatnot. And I guess some of that information I didn't read over. So read the fucking instructions, read the details, read the fine print, because I didn't do that, and I ultimately kind of screwed myself a little bit on startup costs. So that cost a certain amount of money to go through with the package, and I didn't really understand everything that was in the package, and I ended up applying for an EIN twice and not knowing that this app or third party, they did all that for you. So I paid for an EIN twice. Yeah, I got the other one deleted and got the one actually changed over to my actual business. But that was mistake number one. Mistake number two was funding. I wanted to try and get a logical amount of funding for the startup so I didn't have to tap into my own funds. Unfortunately, I got denied on several occasions, which I don't know why. I had great credit, still do have great credit at the time that I applied. So they hard pull your personal in order to determine whether or not you're eligible for business funding. But when it's business funding, there's a lot more stipulation than a personal funding. And the first company that I applied to denied me right away, and bam, they do a hard pull on my credit report. I go to the second one, get denied. Boom, another hard pull on my credit report. I try for a third time, boom, denied, another hard pull on my credit report. So now I have 3 hard pulls history of my credit report within like 3 or 4 weeks, which is not good. The more that you have on your credit report history like that, the more likely you're going to get denied. And this was something that I didn't know. I got kind of sucked into predatory lending for a last minute Hail Mary with a company. I won't say who they are, but the motherfuckers, man. Ooh, yeah, I went round and round with that account manager, man. That guy didn't like me at the end, that's for sure. But I didn't read between the lines like I should have, and I was desperate, and time was ticking, and my end date for my OEM was coming up really fast, and I still had no funding. Um, Now, when I say predatory lending, they hide a lot of stuff in the fine print, and if you don't read that, that's where the catch is. And I didn't do that. I just rushed through signing all the paperwork, and man, they made me sign so much paperwork. I was like, this is odd. Why am I signing so much paperwork? Lo and behold, this company, what they do is they take your information and they apply to several credit card companies. And basically the same thing that you can do, you don't need anybody else to do that for you. And I didn't know like that's exactly how it worked. They start with credit card companies, and when the credit card companies denied, then they move to banks and they start negotiating with banks. That's where they come in. They do the negotiating. I didn't know that. So I got caught up in that. And once I started figuring out, and they charge that you pay them 11% per approval. So if you get $50,000 split up between 4 different credit card companies, that's 11% per credit card that you're paying them right off the bat or over a period of time. So once I started putting 2 and 2 together and started figuring out, I was like, holy shit, I got to stop this. And the credit card companies that they obviously disclosed that to me, who they were applying to, I immediately called them and started closing all the applications. I was like, you got to shut this down before I get just destroyed on this. And they're basically doing what I could have did the whole time. And I did it rather quickly. So one of the companies, credit card companies, approved me for like a $11,000 credit card, whatever. So I got hit with 11% on that, plus additional fees that they hid inside the contract. I ended up having to pay them $5,600 right off the bat for basically nothing. And that is my fault. And that's what I mean about if you don't know what you're doing, it's very easy for you to get caught up and dive real quickly when you're starting a business and seeking funding. That's 100% my fault. Lesson learned. However, there is a silver lining to that. When I was traveling for my previous OEM, I used my own personal credit card for travel. Everything out on the road, I used my own personal. So I had a personal card that already had like a very high credit card limit on it, like a very high credit card limit. And I happened to hit them up, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to apply for a business card. I already have a personal with you guys, and I have a great track record. I never missed a payment, nothing like that. My credit score is great, but I've took some dings on my credit report trying to find funding. And they're like, well, you can open a business account with us, and you can transfer your personal credit limit to the business card. I was like, wait, what? Like, yeah. And I was like, why the fuck didn't I know that before I even did any of this? Because if I knew that before, I didn't have to apply for any lending, none at all. I would have had more than enough credit to back me to for startup costs, like more than enough, triple, quadruple enough than what it took me to start up. I was like, holy shit. And from what I understand, this credit card company, there's not a lot out there that do that. So I got very fortunate on that. And that's what I used for the first 3-4 months of startup costs for my company. And man, shout out to that credit card company, because they saved my ass, they bailed me out, and they are one of the sole reasons why my company was able to stay afloat and stay in the game and not fall. So I still use their credit card to this day, and obviously there's been a lot of things that I've worked on with my company, credit building and advanced line of credit and stuff like that, which I've acquired plenty of since then. So that's not much of a problem anymore. But when I first started my company, I had no customers. Nobody knew I existed. I dumped some funding into advertising. I had shirts made with my logo and my name, and I sold those to people that wanted to support me. And I used that to cycle more merch. And my idea was to just keep cycling merch until I kept building up, and I had like a big um, um, shelf of merch that I could sell. And I still to this day have not spent a dime out of that merch fund, because things just developed, and now I don't sell my merch, I actually just give it away now. So not that I'm a greedy bastard like that anymore, but that was one of the things that I was trying to figure out how to use to help fund my business startup. Now when I say I had no customers, I mean I had no customers. Nobody knew I existed. And I spent the first 2 months, 3 months knocking on doors. That's the only way I could think of getting my name out there. And I must have knocked on 60 doors within an 80-mile radius of where I live in my territory. I'm not kidding, 60 doors. And out of those 60 doors, I think only 5 of them decided they were going to give me a chance and let me come in and prove myself. And I still have all 5 of those customers to this day. They one of them is my top customer. And I got very lucky. I didn't think I was going to get any. I got pretty discouraged because I'm not a sales guy, and obviously I don't look like a sales guy because of obvious reasons, you know, which I understand. Those are decisions that I made growing up, but I also didn't think I would ever be a sales guy, so I didn't really care what I looked like. But when you're walking into a shop and the receptionist looks at you, they kind of give you a weird look when you look a specific way. And some of you might think I'm talking shit and I'm not being truthful about it, but I definitely got profiled several times. I even had my info thrown in the trash, basically right in front of me. Didn't never reached the hands that it needed to. You know, obviously when I walked in, I always asked if I could speak to the maintenance supervisor or get his contact info so I can send my info over. You wouldn't believe how many of those places denied me for that. They would not give me contact info. They more than likely did not pass my information along because I never got called, or I never got an email, or I never got an inquiry, and I couldn't reach out because they wouldn't give me that information. It was frustrating. It was frustrating. It was something that I never experienced. I wasn't prepared for that rejection, basically. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I thought people, would understand, like, hey, I'm here to fix your machines. I want to fix your machines. You don't have to wait on OEMs. Like, I'm right down the street, right in your backyard. Give me a shot, and I'll prove myself. No, if you don't make it through the front door, or if you don't get in front of the contact that you need to get in front of, that makes the decision whether they call you in or not, you'll never get called in. And those are all things that I did not know about, and it was fucked up, and I hit some depression over it, stress a lot, and the person I was with at the time decided they wanted to start their own business as well at the same time as me, and I kind of took a lot of the responsibility of building both businesses at the same time, maintaining and building both of them. Not only just mentally and physically, but also financially. Um, I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's the person's long gone. But now all that focus that I had there is now rolled into my business, and it's probably one of the best things that could happen. But uh, it it was stressful, not knowing if you were going to pay your bills, not knowing if you were going to get a call. I hit depression a little bit. I kind of took a route that I shouldn't have, um, with vicing myself, and it's knowing that you're potentially going to fail, and every day it becomes more and more prevalent that you're gonna fail. It really fucks with you. It it's it sucks. It's one of the worst feelings I think I've ever experienced, is the thought of failure. And every day that I didn't get a call, or every day that I didn't get in contact with somebody that I thought was going to be potential, I looked at it as a failure. So every day I was feeling more and more of like a failure. And I really didn't know how to channel that very well, and I channeled it in the wrong way. But I obviously broke out of that as time went on. I started getting work coming in and whatnot. The OEM that I used to work for before, they threw me some work to try to keep me afloat, and that helped a lot. And then two of my buddies, they have their own service companies, Wisconsin and Chicago. They threw me some work that they didn't have to do, and if it wasn't for the OEM and those two guys, I don't know, my mental stability probably would have crashed. And then I would have just kept getting more and more discouraged, and I would have gave up. I would have gave up. And I for anybody that knows me very closely and very personally, I don't give up on things. Um, it takes a lot for me to give up on something. But if there's any moment in life that I thought I was going to give up on something, it was starting my business. I thought for sure I was going to give up, but um, I hit a breaking point, and the breaking point, I if I were to put a timeline on it, it was after 4 months. So the first 4 months were the most stressful, depressing. Um, and then after about 4 months, I caught a break. I had a customer hit me up that I didn't even know existed, and they got me in, and they have no maintenance in the entire shop, so they kind of rely on me now for any of the maintenance. And there was a lot of PM stuff that needed to be done and whatnot, and that helped me a lot. And then I took a crack at a customer, knocked on the door. I finally got a hold of somebody in there, and I got in there, and they gave me a shot, and they ended up being my biggest. They're my biggest customer, my most frequent customer that I go into now. When I say frequent, I'm talking like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and that usually stems into more work that they have in there when I go in there. I also went to when I was in college for industrial mechanics. I met an awesome dude that I still talk to this day, and he ended up becoming a maintenance manager for a local customer. And I didn't know that he was the maintenance manager there, and we just happened to like talk on Facebook one day, and he told me, he's like, "Yeah, I'm the maintenance manager here." I was like, "Dude, what?" I was like, "I've been trying to get in there and I don't have a contact." He's like, "Oh man, yeah, like stop by, let's talk." And I was there the next day, walked through, and he threw me a bunch of work too. Shout out to that guy. He knows exactly who he is, and yeah. So I had something looking out for me starting my business because there was a lot of things that transitioned. I just had to wait. I needed patience, and once I waited and got through those certain stages, it just kept progressing and progressing and progressing, and then eventually I had enough cash flow to where I could start uh, dumping into marketing, and that's one of the things that I got into early on pretty heavily was marketing. I signed a contract with a marketing company my first year, and I probably won't do it again. But they helped me put a lot of my social media together, get me listed on Google, Yahoo, Bing, and all of the search engines and shit like that, keywords and algorithms and stuff like that. Um, excuse me. I This new year I just signed a contract with Big Radio. So now I have radio ads running for the next 6 months on two different local radio stations. Um, I had to sit back and think about the algorithm, or the not the algorithm so much, but the audience that I am trying to reach. And a lot of machine shops are older generation supervisors. That's just, you know, typically how it is. And for us young cats that are on social media, the older generation aren't really on social media like that. So I spent like the first month and a half or year and a half marketing on social media and thinking, hey, that's going to get, me noticed. And I didn't land a single customer from advertising on social media. So I was like, okay, I need to sit back and I need to think about what is the next route, the best route for marketing moving forward into 2025. And I was like, radio. Fucking radio. Actually, what I was talking to my buddy, one of my buddies, my my good buddy, and he was like, yeah, that he was talking about radio with his wife, and I was like, and it just clicked. I was like, fucking radio ads, man. Old people listen to the radio. It sounds fucked up, but it's literally what came to my head. So I was like, okay, yeah, great, man. So I got a hold of Big Radio, and we put some ads together, and I've already had two or three people already reach out to me and be like, hey, I heard your ad on the radio. So it's like, all right, that's if that happened within the first 2 weeks of the new year of them running the ads, then that's a good sign, because now I'm actually getting feedback, so people are hearing it. So I just gotta ride that wave out. Um, I post a lot on LinkedIn. I Not so much like I used to. Um, some of my customers, I can't take photos or videos inside their facility, so it's hard for me to kind of keep up with that. But I try to stay up on LinkedIn as best as possible. Facebook, I don't really give a shit about. It's all young people, and a lot of people just don't care about business and what I do. So um, LinkedIn is probably the heaviest that I'm trafficked at for my business. And I like LinkedIn a lot because very orientated around business. So I get to see other machine shop owners and other service techs, and it's nice to just see those in the algorithm and not just stupid shit on Facebook that nobody wants to see. So that's nice. Um, After the 4 months of the hardest part of starting the company, things started to get a lot easier. Um, I started getting a couple more customers coming in that I had from when I worked previously, because I used to cover this area when I worked for my OEM before my last OEM. So there were some that I had contacts in, and it just kind of took time before I was able to get in the door at those places. And then once I got in, I was in. So um, it's starting your own business fucking sucks. And that's it's the best way I can put it, man. It fucking sucks. It's stressful, especially if you take the same route that I took, which I don't recommend anybody take that route. It it fucking sucks, and I kind of think that I needed to go through that because that's a story that I can tell for the rest of my life. Like, yeah, man, I did it. The If you could think of any hard way to start a business, I did it. I started a business the hard way, and a lot of it was self-inflicted because I just didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and a lot of it I had to learn how to do. And everything is great now. Now my company is at a ceiling, and we're trying to figure out how to break through that ceiling. The ceiling, for an example, is your labor rate times 40 hours a week times 52 weeks. So if you do that math, it's almost impossible for you to work. You can't make up more hours in a day. And I almost never work overtime. So I have 8 hours a day, and you take 40 hours a week and times your labor rate times 52 weeks, and that dollar amount at the end of the year, it's hard to make more than that. So I'm at that ceiling. I made that last year for 2024, a little over that. So that's what I mean at the ceiling that I'm at. I don't really. I'm still trying to figure out what's the most logical route to break through that ceiling, and I am thinking this is what I think I'm going to do. Don't 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 do this if you own a business. This might not be right for you. I just think this might be right for me, because I'm always trying to think 2 steps ahead in case there is a failure. Then I'm prepared for it. Um, I am going to look for a part-time sales contractor, and I'm gonna write a stipulation with them, a contract basically, and it'll be an agreement that there'll be $1 an hour, however much time you want to spend driving around, knocking on doors, pay your mileage, pay your labor, that we agree on, and then possibly throw in a what's the word that I'm looking for? No, I can't think now. Um, Commission. Jesus Christ. Commission rate. And try to tie that commission rate into every invoice that is sold at that customer that you got me into. I think that's a very good incentivized package for somebody. I just don't really know when I want to pull the trigger on that. And then the next step after that, because I am keeping up right now. The most I'm booking out is about 2 weeks, roughly 3 weeks. Worst case, if I start getting more than that, that's when I need to make the decision on bringing somebody else on, regardless of my contractor. my contractor would be the first guy that comes on full time, and then if him and I can't keep up, then that's gonna roll into, I think I will bring on a W-2 employee and start training them, and take the take an investment rate into them, and and build them up, and train them to where I'm comfortable of sending them out on their own, and um, throwing them to the wolves. So that's the gifs of me starting up my company. It sucked. I don't recommend it to anybody. At least don't take the route that I took. Please don't. I made a lot of stupid mistakes that kind of set me backwards, but I was able to break through, and overcome them, and now my company is doing great. Um, so, motivational time. In this portion, there was something that I seen on a YouTube video. I've never watched any of the Rocky movies. I know it's probably dumb, whatever, but there was just a short section of a Rocky movie that was on a motivational video that I was watching, and it was Creed and Rocky basically sparring, and Creed's just kind of beating the shit out of him, and Rocky's just giving up, and Creed is sitting there screaming at him, "Come on, Rock, get up!" And Rock's like, "No, tomorrow." And Creed screams, he's like, "There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow." And the more that I took that and broke it down in my head, it's like Creed was pushing Rock so much, and Rock just didn't have it. Rocky was just rock bottom, physically, mentally, just rock bottom, and did not have that motivation to push himself anymore. And Creed is basically metaphorically saying there's no tomorrow. You have to push now. You cannot wait until tomorrow. And I think to transition that into something, I think if you have something that you want to do, or you want to work towards, you cannot wait until tomorrow. Because what happens when tomorrow comes around and you're like, I'll do it tomorrow? That's 2 days. 2 days comes around, I'll do it tomorrow. That's 3 days. And before you know it, you're months, years into that decision, that opportunity that you want to take, but you keep telling yourself tomorrow. But if you sit there and you tell yourself there is no tomorrow, you start. And I like that. I really like that. I think that metaphor is a great mentality to have, especially if you're building something or working towards something. I think thinking that there's no tomorrow and that it needs to be done now, I think that could be a toxic mentality in certain situations that I understand. But we're talking about positive reinforcement of your future, of what you want to do and what you want to become. So, thank you guys for following along. I really appreciate it. I promise we're going to be getting into the good shit and actually talking about service, but I just wanted to knock these out, and maybe somebody listening, you know, is like, okay, don't do what the fuck this guy did, because he did not do it the right way. So hopefully some of my advice or some of my words, reaches the right people, and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to do it that way. So thank you for following along. This is Something's Broken. My name is Tayler Goodyear, and I own TG CNC Service, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. We'll see you guys.